What are you talking about? Did he الزهري fabricate the hadith about the banning of mut'ah with the most trash thumbnail I've ever seen in my life? You couldn't, instead of sitting there regurgitating Shacht and Yumbol and Little, couldn't you spend like just 5 minutes making a thumbnail, bro? It doesn't take that long. 5 minutes. We'll make a thumbnail that doesn't have the word Diddy in it. Like, come on, man. This video is sponsored by Hadith Viz. Hadith Viz is a free Muslim-built research platform designed to make searching, studying, and visualizing hadith easier than ever. Instead of only reading a single narration in isolation, Hadith Viz allows you to go deeper. With access to over 650,000 ahadith, you can search reports by meaning, analyze individual chains, and examine the reliability of trade-ins to see how different narrations connect to wider hadith clusters. The platform also includes advanced research tools, including full cluster lists, related narrations, and a prototype transmission map that allows you to visualize how hadith traveled across various regions. Whether you're a student of knowledge, a researcher, or simply someone who wants a better understanding of the hadith tradition, Hadith Viz gives you a clearer way to explore the material. Try it now at hadithviz.com. Use the promotion login on screen to unlock the full corpus and access the special bonus features. Barakallah fikum, and on to the video. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, it's your brother Leyfi was here. Now in today's video we're going to be exposing the dishonesty of Ilyas, otherwise known as Brethren of Purity. Now this guy's someone who I've had a conversation with on my channel about 6 or 7 months ago. Now that conversation was very respectful and kind, and it was a nice exchange of ideas where we got to discuss topics that are not often discussed within the apologetic space. So you guys can find the link to it in the description and watch it whenever you want. Now, walking away from that conversation, I came with the impression that this guy is a sincere seeker of truth who just has different assumptions and different methodologies that lead him to different conclusions. Unfortunately, this is not the case. I've come to realize that this guy is actually a dishonest clown who lops as a intellectual, when in reality he's just regurgitating old Orientalist arguments against hadith. This is evident by his continuous clip mining of Joshua Little and Yasir Qadi and any other anti-hadith quote mine that he can find. He's also a dishonest interlocutor, and he's no better than the other people he criticizes on TikTok for being dishonest and brain dead. So Leyfi, what makes you say that? Well, I had a conversation with him recently where I was up on a Shia panel, and he came up and he wanted to discuss the reliability of a famous tabi'i, Ibn Shihab az-Zuhri. So the claim is that az-Zuhri fabricated the element about the prohibition of mut'ah by the Prophet at Khaybar, and he did this for certain political and sectarian reasons, namely to attack the position of Ibn Abbas, who was famously soft against mut'ah. So isn't it convenient that az-Zuhri, who is alone in transmitting this particular element, somehow comes up with a prophetic prohibition of mut'ah at Khaybar? On top of that, he claims that there's a strong argument from silence. So the reasoning is that if the Prophet really did prohibit mut'ah at Khaybar, then we would expect to have independent corroboration of this particular element, which is what we don't find. And he gives other additional reasons, but that's the general gist of the argument. So now, with this argument in mind, let's look at the clip that he posted of the conversation that we had and come back and respond in kind.
Okay, right. So, number of claims here. First of all, the first claim is about the prior probability of a prophet making a prohibition and then that prohibition being remembered and transmitted. Now, I can even grant you this weak argument from silence and it still wouldn't even help you. So let me grant that to you. But I don't believe it because that you haven't shown beyond reasonable doubt that just because the prophet made a prohibition that it needs to be corroborated in the way that you're requiring, right? So, but anyway, let me grant it to you. No problem.
So my first point is to challenge the argument from silence. I grant it to him, but I say, like, look, this really isn't that strong because the Prophet, if you actually look at the wording of the hadith, which I'll put on screen now, he's not saying that this was publicly proclaimed at Khaybar and he gathered the armies and said it in front of the armies. He's not saying that. What he's saying is that he just prohibited mut'ah at Khaybar. It was just prohibited. He doesn't say that this was done publicly. So this is just an assumption that you're reading in. So for that reason, we don't actually expect this kernel to survive in the way that you're requiring. We don't expect mass attestation of this to survive. And on top of that, Zuhri likely had access to many reports that we don't have. The tabi'in had access to many reports that we don't have. So survivorship bias is also a thing that you're not considering. So for that reason, this argument from silence is not actually strong or convincing. But regardless, I'll still grant it to you. Okay, so that's what I'm saying. Now let's continue. Now he also says here, he says, notice how Leyfi refers to az-Zuhri with other companions, entailing that az-Zuhri was also a companion. He was not. So he's accusing me of thinking that az-Zuhri is a companion because I say other companions. Okay, that's his claim, right? And he says he was a tabi'i, which is true. This assumption made Lيفي think that a transmission by Ali is as a corroboration. That's not what I'm saying. That's not my claim.
No. You said that this report is not corroborated and it only comes through the path of Ibn Shihab al-Zuhri. Are there any other companions who narrate this hadith to your knowledge?
Here I'm speaking about companion ascriptions. I'm saying, apart from the Zuhri Ali tradition, are there any other companion ascriptions? That's my question. I'm not saying that Az-Zuhri is a companion. I'm saying from Az-Zuhri, does he ascribe it to any other companion? Does he ascribe this matan, the gist, to any other companion? That's what I'm asking. I'm not saying that Az-Zuhri is a companion. The fact that you think that I don't know who Ibn Shihab al-Zuhri is, who is literally the most famous and prolific tabi'i of all time, whose death in 124 literally marks the systemization of isnad. You think I don't know who that is? Like, come on. This is basically like you're talking to someone who's been studying hadith for like 5 years and you're trying to claim that they don't know what sahih means. Obviously, this is like a lie that doesn't even make sense. It's not even credible for you to accuse me of this. This is like hilarious. Here's a clip from me in my discussion with Life 6 months ago telling you who Ibn Shihab al-Zuhri is. She says, Zuhri and his contemporaries. Do you know who Zuhri is? You know who Zuhri is?
Oh, I have no idea who that is.
Yeah, Zuhri, Ibn Shihab al-Zuhri is one of the greatest tabi'een. I mean, surprising that you don't know who Ibn Shihab al-Zuhri is. And his contemporaries... And his contemporaries received from their predecessors a genuine core of the sayings and deeds of the Prophet, together with a genuine core of the sayings and deeds of the companions and successors, along with some accretions that are naturally going to happen due to oral tradition, right? There's not going to be exact transmission, it's going to be paraphrasing. Thereafter, deliberate tampering with either the content of the isnads of the Prophet's traditions, as distinct from the sayings and deeds of the Prophet and the successors, may have passed undetected by ordinary transmitters, but not by the aggregate of the ever watchful and basically honest, aggressively outspoken master traditionalists. So she's saying that the hadith are a source of history and that Az-Zuhri received actual authentic material from the Prophet. So obviously, I know who Ibn Shihab al-Zuhri is. I know he's a tabi'i and he's not a companion. My question is about the tradition, the companion ascription. Are there other companion ascriptions from Az-Zuhri to other companions apart from Ali? That's my question in substance. And he doesn't want to engage or understand that. And he thinks that I don't know who Ibn Shihab al-Zuhri is. It's actually hilarious. So then, Lيفي, what other companion ascriptions are you talking about and why do they matter? Well, because apart from the Ali ascription, right, there's also a Sabra tradition from Az-Zuhri. There's also the Ibn Umar tradition from Az-Zuhri. There's also a weak Ka'b bin Malik tradition from Az-Zuhri and another tradition from Az-Zuhri from Anas bin Malik. So there's multiple companion ascriptions that I'm trying to get him to look at because he's not considering them as part of the data about this prohibition of mut'ah. And he's thinking that I'm saying that Az-Zuhri is a companion. It's just, you're just not tracking, bro. I'm talking about the tradition. From Az-Zuhri to the companion ascribed, are there other companion traditions? That's what I'm asking. And I thought you would be smart enough to understand what I'm saying. But instead, he sits there and he says, yo, it's much more clear in this video than it was on the live. Bro, you're just dishonest. You're a dishonest clown. And you don't know what you're talking about. That's the point. So let's continue, right? Let's continue.
That says the exact same thing.
Yeah, show us.
Yes.
Show us. Make the screen big. Okay.
Yeah, make the screen big. Alright. Ali ibn Abi Talib narrated, the Prophet prohibited mut'ah with women and the meat of domestic donkeys during the campaign of Khaybar.
Chain? Show us the chain. Show us the chain.
Yeah.
Show us the chain.
Yeah. Yeah, it has a Zuhri in it as well.
Yeah.
Bro, what's this?
So why are you bringing it?
Why are you bringing Zuhri, bro?
What do you mean, why am I bringing it up? Because you said no other companions narrated.
Notice, he still hasn't realized that Zuhri is not a companion. He says other companions besides Zuhri again.
Again, this guy's brain dead. I'm talking about Ali, no other companions. What's the first one that you brought up? It was the Sabra one. The ascription was to a Sabra. I'm telling you, apart from that one, Ali is ascribed with the same tradition. Bro, this guy's a clown.
The first hadith we read is also from Ali ibn Abi Talib. Didn't you read it?
I asked you about companions, bro. Did you not hear my question?
Yeah. So the first hadith we read was also attributed to Ali ibn Abi. It's literally the same hadith.
Bro, why are you guys sitting here?
Just made like a big L. Okay, that's...
Wallah, this is...
Yeah.
What are you... Bro, what? I already said, bro. I already told you Zuhri is the common link. I'm saying, I asked you from Az-Zuhri.
So, bro, why did you bring the hadith? Like, it's literally
because
the first
I'm asking you, bro, because before we get to the common link, we have to see who it's ascribed to. Silly.
Yeah, it's even in this, the first one we read, it's Ali.
Okay, so then...
Yeah, okay, then he cuts it out. And I'm explaining to him, I already granted to you Zuhri is the common link, bro. We're talking about companion ascriptions. Like how dishonest can you be? It's actually hilarious. So if we go back into the video and you actually go back and you watch the video, you'll see that we're talking about multiple different traditions. And one of the ones that he brings up is the Sabra tradition. So again, it's clear from the context. I'm talking about companion ascriptions. I'm saying from Az-Zuhri to the people that he's ascribing it to. How many of those people are there and who are they? Are there people other than Sabra? Are there people other than Ali? Who else does it ascribe to? And you'll find that there are multiple companion ascriptions with the same distinctive matan, right? Even though there's some obviously disagreements, but that's fine. The same gist is about the prohibition of mut'ah, which this guy's not looking at. And he's like to me, why are you bringing this hadith up, sir? Because it matters to your analysis about the prohibition of mut'ah. And he just clips the context out of it and cuts out my response because he wants to post this silly little clip. Now, my question to you is, how does this make you any better than any of the low-tier clowns that you sit there complaining about day in, day out and on TikTok? You're the same. You just want to find clips. So that's fine. You can lie about me. I'm just going to start telling the truth about you. And we'll see whose clip does better and whose clip does worse. If you want to do clip farming, we'll do clip farming and we'll see whose clips do the best. So good luck. That's all I'm going to say. So now that we've shown Brethren's dishonesty, let's actually deal with his argumentation against Az-Zuhri. Now, first we have to deal with who Ibn Shihab Az-Zuhri is and what historical critical scholars think about his reliability. Now, when we analyze the opinions of historical critical scholars on the reliability of Az-Zuhri, we find that the overwhelming verdict is positive. Quote, in another 1991 article, Motki continues to use the Musannaf of Abd al-Razzaq as a tool to correct Shaykh's conclusions about early Islamic legal hadith, particularly the legal material ascribed to the famous Ibn Shihab Az-Zuhri. Motki compares the legal hadith narrated by Zuhri students Ma'mar ibn Rashid and Ibn Jurayj from their teacher with material found in the book of another one of Zuhri's students, Malik, by proving that the material of the hadith of both Ma'mar and Ibn Jurayj come from a common source, presumably Az-Zuhri. Motki suggests that the material attributed to Az-Zuhri actually came from him, especially in the case of Ma'mar and Ibn Jurayj. Their narrations bear no signs of intended forgery. These scholars drew upon a diverse range of sources, and they readily transmitted hadiths or scholarly opinions that disagreed with their own stances. If they were using these transmissions only as a means to promote their own legal agenda, why would they want to transmit reports that disagree with them? Motki devotes special attention to a bizarre report that Az-Zuhri attributes to one of the Prophet's companions, who allowed grown men to become relative to women by breastfeeding from them. By establishing the transmission from Az-Zuhri and then showing that the material that Az-Zuhri reported was itself compiled from several sources, Motki argues that the common link for this report is in fact the companion who said it in the second half of the 7th century. That Az-Zuhri personally disagreed with the companion on the ruling that he transmits testifies to his integrity as a transmitter. Now, in this case, the companion that he's talking about is Aisha radiallahu anha, who famously held the opinion that was not held by any of the other wives, that men could become relative to women by breastfeeding from them, from a cup, right? Now, as I said, this opinion was rejected by the other wives of the Prophet and the other companions, who recognized that the ruling that Aisha was talking about was specific to only one companion. It wasn't a general ruling. Aisha used it as a general ruling when in reality it was just a specific instance that the Prophet allowed it in. And Az-Zuhri disagrees with Aisha, and yet he transmits a report that he disagrees with. So he's transmitting legal rulings that he disagrees with. Why would a forger do that? That makes absolutely no sense. This is the person that you're accusing of fabricating hadith. Now, it's not just Motki who holds to positive views of Az-Zuhri's transmission. Historical critical scholars across the board overwhelmingly agree that Az-Zuhri's transmission is generally reliable. The same conclusions were reached independently by people like Andreas Gorky and Shula. So now when Brethren claims that Ibn Shihab Az-Zuhri is a fabricator of hadith, this is something that is verifiably false. Ibn Shihab Az-Zuhri was not a fabricator of hadith, and if he was, he would have been caught by the community around him. So why should I expect now that Ibn Shihab Az-Zuhri, who's been shown to be an honest narrator time and time and time again, is all of a sudden gonna lie about something as trivial as this? Now, on the issue of Az-Zuhri's motivation of forgery, this is laughably weak. Now, Brethren's argument here is that Az-Zuhri conveniently comes up with a prophetic prohibition of mut'ah at Khaybar to undermine Ibn Abbas's legal opinion. But think about it. If Ibn Shihab Az-Zuhri wanted to invent the cleanest Sunni anti-mut'ah proof, why would he choose Khaybar? It creates a problem because Az-Zuhri himself also transmits a Sabra's tradition which explicitly says that mut'ah was prohibited on the conquest of Mecca, on the day of the conquest of Mecca. And in fact, that wording is so strong that it says that it was prohibited until the day of resurrection. So why is Az-Zuhri transmitting both routes? If Az-Zuhri was going to make up an anti-mut'ah prohibition, he would have put it later at the conquest of Mecca or after that at the farewell pilgrimage at Tabuk, at Hunayn, at any point after the conquest of Mecca. Why? Because then that's even stronger legal precedent that mut'ah was prohibited. If he puts it earlier, then there's more room for it to be abrogated. If he puts it later, it's a stronger case against Ibn Abbas that it was prohibited right towards the end of his life. But he doesn't do that. He transmits both variants, which shows that he's an honest transmitter and that there's disagreement about the chronology. On top of this, Az-Zuhri explicitly claims to receive this information from Hussein and from his brother Abdullah, who are both sons of Muhammad ibn Ali. Now, why would Az-Zuhri name two separate informants and attach them to his father? It seems unlikely that any of Zuhri's contemporaries in Medina would simply let this retrojection happen without questioning it. All of these data points have to be explained away under Brethren's reconstruction. But under the traditionalist reconstruction, these data points make perfect sense. There was simply a mistaken chronology about when the prohibition of mut'ah actually happened. And as such, Zuhri transmitted multiple distinct contradictory opinions, which later scholars had to sift through and find the best reconstruction. That makes much more sense than saying that Az-Zuhri simply fabricated something for some political purpose that doesn't even make sense. Now, when I explained to brethren that there are alternative, plausible reconstructions that don't involve Az-Zuhri fabricating hadith, he conceded to the point. He said, yes, there are, but I think mine is more likely. I think it's more likely that Az-Zuhri fabricated hadith, and he thinks I have too much husn al-dhun for Az-Zuhri. He thinks, meaning I'm giving Zuhri the benefit of the doubt when he doesn't deserve it. As I've demonstrated, Zuhri has shown himself time and time again to be a reliable transmitter. There's no reason for me to accuse him of fabricating. The only reason you would want to do that is if you are hell-bent on attacking the Sunni ilm al-hadith and you want to discredit one of its major transmitters. That's the real reason you're attacking Az-Zuhri. And to be honest, the arguments that you're bringing forth are very unconvincing. These are very flimsy, weak, and unconvincing arguments that you're bringing to attack the reliability of Ibn Shihab Az-Zuhri. I, of course, encourage you guys to go to Brethren's channel and to watch the whole discussion in 4K Ultra HD. The link to it will also be in the description, so you guys can go and see how you think the conversation went. Now, whether or not you agree with my reconstruction or Brethren's reconstruction, you guys are free to watch the whole discussion, which I encourage you to do, and to come to your own conclusions about who you think is being dishonest and who you think is being honest in engaging with the critiques at hand. Another thing that I want to say is I got no problem with being wrong. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'm happy to accept correction. So, for example, in this instance, I misspelt the name of a scholar. I said Ibn al-Mandi. His name is Ibn al-Madini, right? Autocorrect spelt it wrong. And I posted it without checking it. And you corrected me. And I said, thank you for the correction. So does Lيفي have a problem with being wrong and being corrected? I don't have a problem with being wrong. I don't have a problem with being corrected. And in fact, Lيفي is a human. He can make mistakes. It's okay. I'm not infallible. I'm not the 12th Imam in hiding. Okay, I'm not, right? But the problem that I have is I didn't make a mistake. You just misunderstood me. You just misunderstood me and quoted me out of context to make me seem like I'm saying something that I'm not saying. When me and you both know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the traditions ascribed to particular companions from Az-Zuhri. That's what I'm talking about. You silly little goose. I'm not talking about Az-Zuhri being a companion. It's honestly laughable that you think I would think that. Now that the arguments against Az-Zuhri's reliability have conclusively been refuted, let's look at some of Brethren's opinions and claims. This scholarly researcher, this rational mind, right? This historian, Brethren of Purity, Ilyas. Let's see some of his opinions about the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam.
The Old Testament generally is ahistorical, of course. Like, I don't think Abraham actually existed. But
wait. As a Muslim, you don't believe Ibrahim alayhi salam existed?
Yeah, no, there's no historical evidence to posit.
He doesn't believe Moses existed.
Oh my God, bro.
He's a fully aqliyat Shia, brother. He's a fully aqli Shia. He takes HCM.
Yeah, that's
and he
crazy.
takes his mantiq of everything. So he
literally
believes the Quran is just stories.
You need to be honest with the reality. Like, I mean, that's what's happening.
Brother, do you know who Javad Hashmi is, brethren?
Yeah, he's a good friend of mine.
Okay, he's a good friend of yours, I know. So, do you and him both agree that the Quran is asatir al-awwaleen?
Yeah, it is. Always.
Okay, right. So, what does the Quran? Does the Quran say that the kuffar say that it is asatir al-awwaleen?
Yeah, I'm a kafir.
Okay, exactly. All right.
I'm a kafir who is interested in the actual values of the Prophet, and I think you are Muslimin who are not interested.
You can believe in the actual values of the Prophet while not saying that it's just
wait,
brother,
well, I'm actually
yeah, because the thing is, you guys don't think sincerely. That's the problem. Like,
brethren, listen. I have a sincere question. Wait, I have a sincere question because you just talked for a long time. A sincere question. Why didn't you just ta'weel what he just said right now instead of just accepting? You do believe these are asatir al-awwaleen?
Why would I do ta'weel of it? Why would I change meaning of something that the Prophet meant?
So you literally do believe you're a kafir?
Yes, I am a kafir, of course. That's very clear. But, you know, if I was living at his time, I would have shut up and I would have supported his movement. I wouldn't care whether it's a Asatirul Awwaleen or not. I would have said, yeah, Bala ya Rasulullah.
Wait, but according to you, he's a liar then, because he's saying Moses existed and you all descend from Adam and whatever.
Yeah, he's either a liar or he's mistaken.
Okay, so you believe the Prophet is either a liar or mistaken.
So as you guys just saw, this man, as a Muslim, denies the existence of Prophet Abraham alayhi salam. He also says that Moses didn't exist. Why? Because he bootlicks historical critical scholarship. And they have no evidence for the existence of Moses or Abraham or any of the other patriarchs. So as such, that means Abraham doesn't exist. And the Quran is wrong and Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam is wrong, according to Brethren of Purity. This intellectual thinker, right, this scholar, mujtahid of our time. So when me and Dean question him about his methodology of how he reached this conclusion, he tells us, quote, the Quran is asatirul awwaleen. Now, where did he get this from? He got this from his friend Javad Hashmi, who also thinks the same thing, that the Quran is just stories, it's just fables, it's just legends being repeated, right? The Quran doesn't actually take any of its characters seriously as historical figures. It's just all made up. The same exact thing that the mushrikeen of Quraysh used to say to the Prophet is the exact same thing that Brethren of Purity, the mujtahid of our time, thinks about the Prophet. And he says, well, this doesn't matter, because even though the Prophet Muhammad is, according to him, either lying or mistaken, and he says he's most likely mistaken, he still would have followed him even though the Prophet was mistaken. So if the Prophet was mistaken, why would I follow a mistaken man who clearly doesn't know anything more than anyone else? According to you, it makes absolutely no sense. But hey, this is the champion of aql, the champion of historical critical analysis and reasoning. If that wasn't bad enough, he also denies other claims that the Quran makes. For example, he denies the virgin birth of Isa alayhi salam because historical critical scholarship has shown that this was a later edition by Luke, which of course is not true, and we don't care what scholarship says. Scholarship is not an arbiter of what is true and what is false. Scholarship is a tool for us to understand, for us to use. It's not something that is conclusive. It doesn't correspond to reality. It's an instrument. I think it's safe to say that Brethren of Purity is a kafir, billah al-azim, a big kafir, a pseudo-intellectual kafir. Now this guy, Brethren of Kufr, which is his name from now on, you are now Brethren of Kufr. You are now no longer Brethren of Purity. You are now Brethren of Kufr was Zandaqa, right? Ikhwan al-Kuffar was Zanadiqa is what you should be called, not Ikhwan al-Safa. Ikhwan al-Kufr was Zanadiqa. Billah al-Azim. This guy should not be taken seriously by anyone. Why? Because the Shi'as, the mainstream Shi'as, the Tawbas, even they disown him and they don't agree with him on his positions. The mainstream Sunnis, they don't agree with him. The only people who agree with him are these pseudo-intellectual liberal bots who sit there and bootlick Orientalists. That's the only people who agree with him, and they think that they're so smart and they're so intellectual because they're using methodologies that essentially boil down to subjective value judgment. Oh, I think this makes more sense. Or it makes more sense to me that this would happen. If Az-Zuhri was to transmit it, he would have transmitted both elements. They would both be corroborated. Oh, I think that if the Prophet said it at Khaybar, everyone must have heard it and it must have been transmitted by everyone. No one cares about what you think and what you feel, bro. Give me the evidence. What's the evidence Az-Zuhri fabricated it? You got nothing. What's the evidence that Az-Zuhri or someone else didn't just make a mistake with the chronology? Oh, that seems much more likely, given the fact that people have continuously made mistakes about chronology. This is a reoccurring issue when it comes to the seerah. Anyway, I just wanted to make this video to set the record straight and to expose the dishonesty of Brethren of Kufr. Now, if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, comment, share, and subscribe. And if you found benefit in it, make sure to share it around. Barakallah feekum. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.